Buckle up. This isn't a campfire story, not the kind you tell for a giggle. This is what happened to me, Liam, and Sarah on that road trip through the Appalachians back in '08. I still get cold sweats thinking about it, and it's been 17 damn years. We were college kids, right? Full of piss and vinegar, convinced we were invincible. Liam was the mechanic, knew everything about cars. Sarah was the photographer, always chasing the perfect light. And me? I was the navigator, the one with the maps and the now clearly flawed sense of direction. The plan was simple. Drive from Pennsylvania down to Georgia, hitting every scenic overlook and quirky roadside attraction along the way. 2 weeks of freedom before the crushing weight of midterms descended. We crammed into Liam's beat-up but reliable Jeep Cherokee, packed enough ramen to feed a small army, and hit the road. The first few days were exactly what we'd hoped for. Sun-drenched vistas, greasy diner food, and sing-alongs to bad '80s music. Sarah was in her element, snapping photos of everything from rusty mailboxes to mist-shrouded mountains. Liam kept the Jeep purring like a kitten, and I mostly ate snacks and tried not to get us lost. Then we decided to take a detour. It was my fault, I admit it. I saw it on an old, tattered map I'd found in a gas station. A dotted line snaking through a particularly remote section of the West Virginia mountains. A handwritten note beside it read, "Old Devil's Road, unbelievable views." Unbelievable views, I'd said, practically drooling. Come on, guys. Let's be adventurous. We'll get some killer photos, Sarah. Liam was hesitant. He didn't like the look of the road on the map, said it looked barely maintained. Sarah, though, was immediately on board. The promise of killer photos was too tempting. So, against my better judgment, which, in retrospect, was screaming bloody murder, we turned off the main highway and onto Old Devil's Road. The pavement quickly deteriorated, turning into a gravel track that was barely wider than the Jeep. The trees closed in around us, their branches clawing at the roof like skeletal fingers. The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth and something else. Something acrid, like burnt leaves and decay. After an hour of bone-jarring driving, even Sarah started to look uneasy. The views, while undeniably breathtaking, were also unsettling. There was a stark, almost unnatural beauty to the landscape, a sense of isolation that pressed down on us. We hadn't seen another car in hours. No houses, no signs of civilization. Just endless forest and the winding, treacherous road. Then the sun began to set. The sky bled into shades of bruised purple and blood orange, casting long, distorted shadows that danced in the periphery of our vision. The forest seemed to grow darker, more menacing. Liam flipped on the headlights, but they did little to pierce the gloom. The road ahead was a murky, uncertain ribbon. That's when the radio started acting up. Static, mostly, punctuated by brief bursts of what sounded like whispering. Not clear voices, just a low, guttural murmur that seemed to emanate from the very air around us. Liam fiddled with the dial, trying to find a clear station, but nothing worked. The whispering persisted, growing louder, more insistent. It was like the mountains themselves were trying to tell us something. Just interference, Liam said, trying to sound reassuring. He glanced at me, his brow furrowed with concern. But it wasn't just interference. I could feel it in my gut, something was wrong. Terribly wrong. We rounded a bend, and there it was. A silhouette against the dying light. A figure standing in the middle of the road. Liam slammed on the brakes, the Jeep skidding on the loose gravel. We lurched to a stop, our hearts pounding in our chests. The figure was tall and gaunt, shrouded in what looked like a long, tattered coat. Its face was obscured by shadow, but I could feel its eyes on us, cold and piercing. For a long moment, we just stared at each other, frozen in place. The only sound was the thrumming of the Jeep's engine and the infernal whispering on the radio. Then the figure raised a hand. Not in greeting, but in warning. A slow, deliberate gesture that sent a shiver down my spine. "Turn back," a raspy voice croaked, barely audible above the static. "Turn back now." Liam, ever the pragmatist, rolled down the window. "Hey, we're just trying to get through here. Is there a problem with the road ahead?" The figure didn't answer. It just stood there, its hands still raised, its eyes burning into us. "We don't want any trouble," Liam continued, his voice tight. "We'll just be on our way." He shifted the jeep into gear and started to ease forward. The figure didn't move. Liam honked the horn, a short, sharp blast that echoed through the silent forest. Still, the figure remained rooted to the spot. Finally, Liam gunned the engine and swerved around the figure, narrowly avoiding hitting it. We sped past, our eyes glued to the rearview mirror. The figure stood there, watching us go. As we rounded another bend, I saw it raise its arm again, pointing in the opposite direction. A silent command to turn back. We didn't. We drove on, faster now, our nerves frayed. The whispering on the radio intensified, morphing into something more distinct. I could swear I heard words now, twisted, guttural words that made no sense, but felt deeply, instinctively wrong. After what felt like an eternity, we saw it. A light in the distance, flickering through the trees. A house, maybe? A sign of civilization. We sped towards it, our hopes rising. As we got closer, we could make out the shape of a small cabin, nestled in a clearing. Smoke curled from its chimney, painting a picture of warmth and welcome. We pulled up to the cabin, our headlights illuminating its weathered walls. The front door was slightly ajar, casting a sliver of light onto the porch. Liam cut the engine, and the sudden silence was deafening. The whispering on the radio had stopped, replaced by an eerie quiet. "Hello," Liam called out, his voice hesitant. "Is anyone there?" No answer. He tried again, louder this time. "Hello, we're lost. Can you help us?" Still nothing. Liam exchanged a nervous glance with Sarah and me. He grabbed a flashlight from the glove compartment and got out of the jeep. "Stay here," he said, his voice firm. "I'm just going to take a look." He walked slowly towards the cabin, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the darkness. He reached the porch, hesitated for a moment, then pushed the door open wider. A gasp escaped his lips. He stumbled back, his eyes wide with horror. "Liam, what is it?" Sarah called out. He didn't answer. He just stood there, frozen, his flashlight shaking in his hand. I couldn't take it anymore. I jumped out of the jeep and ran towards the cabin, Sarah close behind me. What I saw inside, I'll never forget it as long as I live. The cabin was a single room, sparsely furnished with a rickety table, a couple of chairs, and a cot in the corner. But it wasn't the furniture that caught my attention. It was the walls. They were covered in symbols, strange, arcane symbols that looked like they'd been drawn with blood. They were like nothing I'd ever seen before. A twisted, unholy language that seemed to writhe and pulsate in the flickering light. And then I saw the altar. It was a crude, stone structure in the center of the room, stained with dark, viscous fluid. On top of the altar lay a figure, a human figure. It was difficult to tell who or what it had been. It was mangled, dismembered, and arranged in a grotesque tableau. The air was thick with the stench of rot and decay. Sarah screamed, a piercing, primal scream that echoed through the night. She turned and ran, stumbling back towards the jeep. I wanted to run too, but I was frozen in place, paralyzed by fear and revulsion. Then I heard it, a sound from the corner of the room, a shuffling, scraping sound. I turned slowly, my heart hammering in my chest, and there it was, a figure emerging from the shadows. It was tall and gaunt, like the one we'd seen on the road, but this one was different. This one was wrong. Its skin was stretched tight over its bones. Its eyes were black and empty, and its mouth was a gaping maw filled with rows of needle-sharp teeth. It moved with a jerky, unnatural gait, its limbs contorting at impossible angles. It was like a puppet, controlled by some unseen force. It looked at me, and I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that it wasn't human. Not anymore. It lunged at me, its claws outstretched. I screamed and stumbled back, tripping over the uneven floor. I fell to the ground, my head hitting the hard-packed earth. The figure was on top of me, its foul breath washing over my face. I could feel its claws tearing at my clothes, its teeth snapping inches from my throat. I closed my eyes, waiting for the end. But it never came. Instead, I heard a loud crack, followed by a sickening thud. I opened my eyes and saw Liam standing over me, his face pale with terror. He was holding a heavy, iron poker, its end dripping with blood. The figure lay motionless on the floor, its body twisted at an unnatural angle. Liam grabbed my hand and pulled me to my feet. "We have to get out of here," he shouted. We didn't need to be told twice. We ran out of the cabin, Sarah already waiting in the Jeep, the engine roaring. We piled in and Liam floored it, sending gravel flying. We sped away from the cabin, back down Old Devil's Road, our eyes glued to the rearview mirror. We didn't see anything following us, but we could feel it. A presence, a malevolent energy that pursued us through the darkness. We drove like our lives depended on it because they did. We didn't stop until we reached the main highway, miles away from Old Devil's Road. We found a motel and locked ourselves in our room. We didn't sleep. We just sat there, huddled together, listening to the silence. We never spoke about what we saw in the cabin. Not really. We tried to rationalize it, to explain it away as a hallucination, a shared nightmare. But we knew the truth. We knew that something evil resided in those mountains, something ancient and malevolent. We finished our road trip, but it wasn't the same. The joy was gone, replaced by a gnawing sense of dread. When we got back to college, we drifted apart. The experience had changed us, scarred us in ways we couldn't articulate. Liam became withdrawn, obsessed with fixing things, as if he could somehow repair the damage we'd done. Sarah stopped taking pictures, claiming she'd lost her eye. And me? I never went back to the mountains. I avoid them like the plague. I still have nightmares, though. Nightmares of blood-soaked symbols, of gaunt figures with black eyes, of guttural whispers in the dark. Sometimes, when I'm driving late at night, I hear static on the radio. And sometimes, just for a fleeting moment, I hear whispers. And I know, deep down, that Old Devil's Road is still out there, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to wander into its grasp. So take my advice. Stay on the main roads. Don't go looking for unbelievable views. Some things are better left unseen. Some doors are better left unopened. Because sometimes, adventure comes at a price you can't afford to pay. And sometimes, the road you choose leads you straight to hell.